Well, good morning to all of you. So we are ready to start our session. Today, as the first part, what we are going to do is to quickly revise by taking about 10 to 15 minutes. Quickly revise a little bit of theory we did last time. It has been 2 weeks, isn't it? So we will revise these names of hindrances. After that, that meditation on hindrance we could not do that day. So we will be spending about half an hour to do that meditation. So after the break, we will be starting on a different area, concentration, which I briefly introduced last time, but we'll go into details today. And in the third session, we will try to discuss the model, which we call the meditators model of the person or the self. In the last part, we will have a discussion on stress management side, followed by the final item, the quiz, which is of 10 minutes, 10 questions. So that is the plan today. Let us quickly go through the hindrances again so that we are ready for the practical session. We identified them by these names. We know that these hindrances are the ones, the mental factors that prevent concentration in our mind. There are 5 of them. One is our desire to gratify the sensory senses, known by this name, passionate sensory desire or sensuous lust, so that the mind will try to go after pleasing colors, pleasing sounds, pleasing taste likewise. Exact opposite of that, known as aversion or ill will, consists of all kinds of thought related to wanting to reject, like a feeling of hostility, resentment, hatred, bitterness, all that. Sloth or torpor, that was a word we used for the dullness of the mind, not wanting to go through the thinking process actively. That dullness, which we have experienced from time to time, is known by this name. Then this is our inability to calm down the mind so that the mind remains hyperactive, too many thoughts crossing in too short time, identified by the combined word restlessness and worry. Restlessness and worry. Then finally we had the skeptical doubt, which is the lack of conviction or the trust on what we are thinking in our thought process as well as the meditation process. So why these 5 were important? Because they lead to unrest in the mind, and if the unrest is not properly managed, they can lead to stress, and they can lead to anxiety, and they can lead to depression. So that is the bad side of it. But the good side is, the positive side is that there are opposing factors to these 5, which can suppress the impact of these 5 within the mind and get the mind into very restful states, called concentration states, known as meditative absorption states, that we are going to discuss today. So hindrances, we know that when inputs come from our senses, 6 senses, the mind will generate these hindrances within the mind. Hindrances are not there in the eye, ear, or not here. They are all internally generated by the mind. And they affect our peace of mind. They affect the restful state of the mind. They affect our memory also. Our ability to memorize is also affected by the 5 hindrances. We know that each hindrance, when maintained for a short duration, or that means if you support the hindrance in your thinking, it will lead to mental states, so that each of the hindrance was coupled to a name of a mental state that we studied earlier. Hope you remember. Well, sensory desires slowly lead us to the lustful state of the mind. That means if sensory desires are maintained, or if you go after sensory desires, slowly the mind will be moved to this lustful state. It's a state transition, we call it. Then aversion will lead us to hostile state of the mind. Sloth and torpor, if maintained, will lead the mind to contracted state. Then worry and restlessness leads the mind to distracted state. And doubt lead to deluded state. These 5 states, you may remember we studied earlier under mindfulness on the mental states, sometimes known as mindfulness on the mind itself. Right? So we can now see that those states are driven by the 5 mental factors called hindrances. So if the person becomes not only aware of the final mental state, but also aware that the relevant hindrance is rising in power within the mind, then the mindfulness is better. Mindfulness is better, and then you are called having mindfulness on not only mental states, but mindfulness on mental objects as well. So that's the summary. And this is what we are going to do now. We are going to become aware of the hindrances when they occur at the present moment. But how do we make sure that hindrances occur at the present moment? Because we are on a meditation session rather than going through the daily activity. Since the actual practice should happen through daily activities, normal daily activities, what we are going to do is kind of a simulation, which will help us to develop the ability. So it's a background meditation that we do in isolation, but later on with that practice, you can start applying that ability, so that mindfulness on hindrances in the day-to-day life or day-to-day activities at those relevant moments. So this is a very important aspect of mindfulness, because usually people say that there are a lot of disturbance to meditation, like other people making sounds or vehicles making sounds and mosquitoes biting and all kind of reasons to disturb the meditation. But here is a technique where all those disturbances are turned into meditation objects. So meditation itself will be on the hindrance. Therefore, nothing can be of any disturbance to this particular meditation, which is a mindfulness on hindrances. So, because hindrances are very common and always present in our mind, most of the time, I mean. Therefore, this meditation is very handy, because it will not be disturbed by any external thing. because you are exploiting that external disturbance as a meditation object in your meditation. In stage 1 of the contemplation, after you become first aware, then you closely examine rising of the hindrance and passing away of the hindrance as it happens. Like, remember this diagram I showed you, arising, passing away. There can be a time gap between arising and passing away. It could be, say, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, where the hindrance will prevail in power within the mind. Then different hindrance will arise. So the transition can be noticed by you, and that also will pass away. As anything else, hindrances are also impermanent. None of the hindrances can remain in the mind, and it will definitely pass away, giving way to another. Giving way to another one or giving way to concentration, either way. Then what is the second stage of contemplation? That is, you are aware of the arising, and not only aware of that arising process, but you are also aware of why the hindrance is arising. I mean the causes. So with that wisdom added to the contemplation. So full knowledge of the causes will be there. What are the causes for a hindrance to rise or rise in the mind? Okay, some mental image or mental formation will be addressed by the mind or will be touching the mind. If that one is attractive to you and you pay unwise attention to that, that means you are going after gratification of a desire, then passionate or sensual desire, that hindrance will arise within the mind. Similarly, if an annoying mental image or mental formation arise or is touching the mind, then coupled with the unwise attention, it will lead to aversion. It will lead to the aversion. So generally, it will be some mental image pulled out of your memory due to what you see or what you hear or what you receive from any of the 5 senses, will trigger a particular mental image to be retrieved from the memory from the memory. And if you do not pay wise attention and unwise attention paid to that, leading to that cyclic process of the mind, slowly aversion will be arising. So likewise, all 5 hindrances arise due to your mental volitions that result due to unwise attention on the mental image, and internally supported by those driving factors of the mind known as craving and ignorance. Okay. Then vanishing is also happening due to the absence of mental volitions or mental image. Then that hindrance will fade away from the mind and a different hindrance will take over. Remember that time we discussed hindrances are like receptionist in the mind. Normally when people enter to a building or organization, he or she will be talking to the receptionist to get guidance. Same way, when you have inputs from the eye, ear, nose, tongue, or the body, those 5 inputs, and also thoughts from the mind itself, the 6th input, when they arrive, they will be greeted by one of the hindrances. So they are like receptionist in the mind, in an average mind, a mind which has not been trained to curb the hindrances. will have on the reception desk, it will be these five factors. To greet any visitor from the eye, which means some color perception, the sound perception, any of those visitors when arriving will be received by hindrance, and hindrance will take you to a particular mental state. Okay, so absence of these supportive factors will make the hindrance to go away or fade away. So what we are going to do is we are going to simulate this by using a previously stored mental image in your mind. So during meditation, guided meditation, what I would do is I would request you to think of something which will trigger a particular mental image. And then you can think further on that, which will be the mental volitions. And using this process, you can get the hindrance arising. That's a simulation, not the true meditation, true mindfulness. But that simulation will help you in such a way that it will be a practice for you, so that in real life, when that hindrance arises in your mind, you will know because of this practice. So that's what we are going to do there. Okay. So again, that transition, arising, passing away with full knowledge of these causes. That is the stage 2 of contemplation. Right, that's our meditation in the morning. So this is what we are going to do. Let me put the steps on the screen before we enter the meditation. We are going to bring the awareness to the mind and capture the present moment first. Then we try to capture the hindrance which is present at that moment. And if you cannot capture the existing one, then of course we can use recall a mental image and simulate a rising of a hindrance. Identify it with direct insight because it's within your mind. Then become aware of the presence of identical hindrances externally in other people's mind right at this moment. There could be many other people having the same hindrance in force within the mind. That's inferential understanding. After that, we become aware that hindrance is internal, hindrance is external as well. So it's present in the minds of large number of living beings at any given moment. That awareness. Finally, leading to contemplation of hindrance arising, passing away, and realizing that there are causes for them to arise and there are causes them to pass away. Realizing that no hindrance will remain forever in anyone's mind, therefore it will lead to our understanding of the impermanent nature of hindrances as well. Right, that's the practical we are going to do. Right. For example, if I want to trigger ill will within the mind, it's very easy. I just try to recollect an occasion where somebody was against me, and maybe somebody is was blaming me. You just revisit that memory, and ill will take over in the mind. So that kind of simulation we will be doing. Okay, let's do that practical before we move on to the next now. Like last time, you can keep your camera switched on so that the body posture can be seen. And hope you have that arrangement in your room now. But since we are recording it separately, so that I will not be uploading your pictures into the model, we will discontinue this session. And I would request you to log on to the second session with the name practice in the link. Okay, let's do that now. Right?